The sound of a heavy leather boot crushing dry wood echoed through the VIP cable car lobby. Rose fell to her knees. Her bare hands desperately scraped at the polished marble floor. She was trying to gather the crushed, burnt remnants of her wild rock orchids. Marcus, the billionaire owner of the valley's mining operation, kicked the broken wooden tray away. He adjusted his custom silk tie and sneered. "Get this trash out of my lobby. I'm expecting the chairman of Apex Wellness in 10 minutes. If he smells this weed, I'll have you thrown in the frozen river." Rose didn't look up. Her fingers were bleeding from the sharp splinters. But she didn't care. These crushed stems were the only medicine keeping her father alive. He was dying of lung cancer, coughing up blood in the damp worker cabins just a mile away. Every breath he took sounded like crinkling paper. The pain was unbearable, and the company refused to pay for his medical care. Marcus leaned in close. "You still owe me $5,000 for the drying equipment rental. If you don't pay up by tomorrow, I'm taking your father's cabin. You two can freeze in the woods for all I care." He turned on his heel and walked toward the VIP lounge. He had no idea. He had just signed his own ruin. He didn't know that the miracle herb he just called trash was the exact cure the chairman was hunting for. And he certainly didn't know that the quiet janitor mopping the floor in the corner was the chairman himself. Make sure you subscribe right now. You won't want to miss the moment. Absolute justice strikes, like lightning in the freezing snow. Rose wasn't just some beggar looking for pity. She was a survivor. Years ago, a terrible accident in a blizzard left her with a crippling fear of heights. Just looking over a balcony made her dizzy and nauseous. But her father was fading fast. The toxic mining dust from Marcus's quarry had coated his lungs like wet cement. The company doctors gave up on him entirely. The only thing that eased his violent coughing fits was a rare strain of wild dendrobium orchid, and it only grew on the sheer, freezing cliffs of the upper valley. Every single morning before sunrise, Rose strapped on a frayed climbing harness. She closed her eyes, swallowed her panic, and scaled the jagged rocks. Her hands were covered in deep frostbite scars and thick calluses. She risked her life daily for a handful of wild sprouts. One slip on the icy rocks meant a deadly fall into the ravine, but the thought of her father gasping for air kept her moving upward. But harvesting them wasn't enough. The raw orchids were mildly toxic, if not cured perfectly. Rose had perfected a unique thermal drying process, passed down from her late mother. She used a tiny, run-down shed at the edge of the property to roast the herbs over pine embers. Marcus owned the land and everything on it. He charged her triple the rent just to use the old shed. He held her father's medical debt over her head like a heavy iron chain. He knew she was trapped, and he loved watching her struggle. He intentionally delayed her paychecks just to see her beg. He would sit in his heated office, drinking expensive whiskey, while she worked in the freezing cold. If you believe that a daughter's brave heart can shine brighter than the darkest storm, drop this prayer in the comments below. Lord, please bless the sacred soil and protect the brave little herbs that bring warmth to the freezing night. Later that evening, a massive blizzard hit the valley. The wind howled like a wounded animal, tearing shingles off the roofs. Rose was in her drafty shed, tending to the small fire. She was roasting the few orchids she managed to salvage from the lobby floor. Her hands shook from the freezing draft coming through the floorboards. Suddenly, the flimsy wooden door blew open with a loud crash. The janitor from the lobby stumbled inside, covered in snow. He was shivering uncontrollably. But he wasn't alone. He was shielding a little girl inside his oversized patched coat. This was Henry, the billionaire chairman of Apex Wellness. Of course, Rose had no idea who he really was. His daughter, Lily, hadn't spoken a single word in 2 years. Severe trauma from losing her mother had locked her in a state of deep, silent depression. Henry had traveled the world, looking for a cure for her soul. He dressed like a worker, to observe the local herb harvesters without causing a media circus. He wanted to find someone with genuine skill, not just greedy businessmen like Marcus. Right now, they were just a desperate father and daughter, freezing to death. Lily's lips were blue. She was shaking so hard, she couldn't catch her breath. Rose didn't ask any questions. She didn't care that they looked homeless. She quickly pulled them near the fire and grabbed an old blanket. She wrapped it around the little girl's shoulders. Then, she grabbed her only clean mug. She poured hot water over the freshly roasted rock orchids. The steam carried a sweet, earthy fragrance that instantly filled the freezing room. It smelled like fresh rain on dry earth, carrying a hint of wild honey. Rose gently pressed the warm mug into Lily's trembling hands. "Drink this, sweetheart. It tastes like the morning sun. It will make the cold go away." Lily hesitated, her wide eyes staring at the dark liquid. She looked up at her father, then back at the golden tea. She took a tiny sip. The warmth spread through her chest. Instantly, the unique chemical properties of the perfectly roasted orchid worked like magic. For the first time in 2 years, the heavy, hollow look in Lily's eyes melted away. A soft, genuine smile appeared on her pale face. Henry stared, in absolute shock. He recognized the aroma immediately. His top scientists in the city had spent millions trying to recreate this exact thermal curing method. They failed, every single time. And here was a poor girl in a freezing shack, making it look completely effortless. She had the golden touch his empire desperately needed. Henry watched in silence as his little girl held onto Rose's rough, scarred hand. The trauma that had locked Lily away was melting in the warmth of this dilapidated shack. He looked around the small room. There was no high-tech equipment here, no sterile labs or men in white coats. Just a young woman with a fierce heart, roasting stems over pine wood. Henry knew right then that this wild orchid curing method was the breakthrough apex wellness needed to save millions of respiratory patients. He opened his mouth to introduce himself. Suddenly, the roar of a heavy diesel engine drowned out the howling wind. Headlights cut through the snow, illuminating the cracks in the shed's walls. The wooden door was kicked open again, this time so violently it snapped off its rusty hinges. It was Marcus. He had a crew of rough-looking men behind him, holding steel crowbars and heavy flashlights. Marcus sneered, brushing fresh snow off his expensive cashmere coat. "I thought I told you to pack your bags. You little rat. You are a stubborn one, aren't you?" He looked at the small fire and the drying racks. "I have been doing some reading. Turns out, this weed you have been picking is actually worth a fortune, if you cure it right. And since this is my land, and that is my shed, this entire operation belongs to me." Rose stood up, immediately placing herself between Marcus and the little girl. "You cannot do this. This is my mother's recipe. It is the only thing keeping my father breathing." Marcus laughed, a cruel, echoing sound. "Your father is dead weight, Rose. I am taking these herbs, and I am selling the patent to Apex Wellness tomorrow morning. Boys, tear it down and pack up the racks." Henry stepped out of the shadows. He pulled the worn collar of his janitor coat up, hiding the small, blinking red light of the infrared camera pinned to his undershirt. He was recording every single word. "Excuse me," Henry said softly. "I do not think you have the legal right to seize her intellectual property." Marcus turned and glared at the man in the dirty coat. "Who the hell are you? Some homeless trash she picked up off the street? Get out of my sight before I have you buried in the quarry." If Rose's gentle kindness warmed the heart of a desperate father, let us surround her with that same warmth. Drop this prayer in the comments below. Lord, please bless the sacred soil and protect the brave little herbs that bring warmth to the freezing night. Marcus signaled his men. They moved forward, smashing the wooden drying racks with their crowbars. Years of Rose's hard work, The careful temperature logs, the delicate bamboo trays, all shattered into useless pieces. Rose screamed and tried to stop them, but a heavy hand shoved her to the dirt floor. She watched in horror, as Marcus personally grabbed the last batch of perfectly cured rock orchids. He held the glass jar up to the light, greed shining in his eyes. "This is my ticket to the big leagues," Marcus said. "With this, the chairman will beg me to join his board." Henry reached into his pocket. He didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a sleek, black satellite phone. He dialed a single number and pressed it to his ear. "It is me," Henry said, his voice completely changing. The soft, humble tone of a homeless man was gone. It was replaced by the cold, commanding authority of a billionaire who had just lost his patience. "Bring the convoy up to Sector 4. Right now." Marcus stopped laughing. He stared at the phone in Henry's hand. It was a military-grade device, something a janitor couldn't possibly afford. Within 60 seconds, the ground began to shake. It wasn't a bulldozer. A fleet of armored black SUVs broke through the tree line, their high beams blinding everyone in the shed. They surrounded Marcus's trucks perfectly, cutting off any chance of escape. Dozens of men in sharp black suits stepped out into the blizzard. They didn't look like local thugs. They looked like highly trained corporate security agents. The lead agent, a tall man with an earpiece, walked straight past Marcus. He stopped in front of Henry and bowed his head respectfully. Sir, the perimeter is secured. Are you and Lily unharmed?" Marcus dropped the glass jar. It shattered on the floor, mixing the precious orchids with the dirt. His face drained of all color. His knees started to shake so violently, he had to lean against the broken doorframe to stay standing. "Sir?" Marcus whispered, his voice cracking. Henry took off the dirty, oversized coat and wrapped it tightly around his daughter. He stepped forward, the raw power of his true identity filling the small room. "I am Henry Sterling, Chairman and CEO of Apex Wellness. And you, Marcus, are the most pathetic excuse for a businessman I have ever met." Marcus fell to his knees in the dirt. "Mr. Sterling, I did not know. I was just securing the product for you. I did this for the company." Henry looked down at him with absolute disgust. "I have you on camera, admitting to theft, extortion, and assault. My legal team is currently freezing every single asset you own. Your mining operation is shut down. As of 5 minutes ago. You are going to prison, Marcus. And you will never see a dime of my money." The security agents grabbed Marcus by the arms and dragged him out into the snow. He was screaming, begging for mercy. But the howling wind drowned him out completely. The thugs who had smashed the racks were already pinned to the ground, waiting for the police to arrive. Justice shines brighter than the clearest crystal under the winter sun. Show your support for Rose and type this prayer in the comments. Lord, please bless the sacred soil and protect the brave little herbs that bring warmth to the freezing night. Henry turned back to Rose. She was sitting on the floor, completely stunned by what just happened. He knelt down and gently helped her up. "Rose, I came to this valley looking for a miracle. My scientists couldn't figure out the thermal curing process. But the real miracle wasn't just the recipe, it was the person who made it. You showed kindness to a stranger when you had nothing left to give. You cured my daughter's silence." Lily tugged on Rose's sleeve. She looked up with bright, clear eyes. "Thank you," Lily whispered. It was the first time she had spoken in 2 long years. Tears streamed down Henry's face as he pulled his daughter close. He looked at Rose, his heart full of a gratitude no amount of money could buy. "I want to buy your patent, Rose, but more importantly, I want you to run the new Apex Heritage Division. And we are going to fly your father to the best pulmonary hospital in the country, tonight." Fast forward. 2 years later. The cold, dark shed was just a distant memory. Rose stood on the balcony of a beautiful estate, overlooking a harbor lit up by thousands of glowing lanterns. The northern lights danced across the sky, painting the snow in shades of emerald and violet. Inside the warm living room, Her father was sitting in a comfortable leather armchair. He was laughing, breathing easily, telling stories to Lily. His lungs were completely clear and fully healed. Henry wrapped his arms around Rose from behind, resting his chin softly on her shoulder. He kissed her cheek, slipping a stunning diamond ring onto her scarred, calloused finger. Those hands had braved the deadly cliffs, and now they held the entire world. As for Marcus, he was sitting in a cold, concrete cell. He was stripped of his wealth and his pride, completely forgotten by the world he tried so hard to impress. When you sacrifice everything to plant seeds of kindness in the middle of a bitter storm, the universe will always reward you with the sweetest harvest. Subscribe to our channel to warm your soul with more stories of hope and justice.